I've created a short needle felting time lapse for you for the Jack Russell puppy, which can be adapted for any dog. There is a link in the description for the full tutorial. But if you're feeling confident, maybe you've done a few projects already and you just want a quick idea of what's actually going on shape-wise and how it's made, then this is perfect for you. Otherwise, if you want a step-by-step tutorial guide, as I said, link is in the description. So we're going to start off with some carded core wool. You can use coarse core wool if you want. I've got just a felting mat with a topper to protect the mat. I'm using a 38 star needle, and I'll also be using a 40 triangular needle later on for some finer details. And the first shape I'm creating is the body, and this is created from a basic barrel shape. So it's one of the core foundational shapes. And the trick is to make sure that it's really firmly rolled before you even start felting. It just makes the job so much easier. So you keep rolling that shape, you keep pulling those sides in as well. You don't want to end up with a sausage. You definitely want a barrel shape. And you keep building that up, adding the layers. Remember, you can always add more, so don't start with too much. And then when you want to finesse that top layer, you can use the finer needle, and also to speed it up, you can use the multi-tools, as you can see here. And also your hands are great tools. So use your hands to create that shape. It should be squishy, but come straight back to its shape after you've squeezed it and let go. Now there is a pattern template for this if you want to use it. And I'm just showing you here how I use my templates. They are available in the shop. Again, I'll put a link in the description. I'm just moving on to the head now, and again starting with that sort of barrel shape, which we're now creating and moving that shape into an egg shape. And this egg shape is a fantastic shape for most animal heads, and it's what we use to start with. When we're adding more intricate details or realistic features, then we can just keep adding to that. And as our confidence and skills grow, then we can improve that. And I've added a little bit extra on for the nose here. It was easier to add it on using the barbecue skewer than it was to do it by hand. It just keeps it really nice and secure. And I'm just shaping with that needle now. So I'm really working on that muzzle. I'm flattening that nose, but I'm also making sure that the head shape is nice and tidy. There's no lumps and bumps before I take it off the skewer for final shaping. And this barbecue skewer, if you've never used one before, is absolutely amazing. It helps make such simple shapes even easier, and it really helps get that firm felt. And I'm just going around now. I've been using that 40 fine needle again, and you can squish that shape with your fingers. This wool is really, really pliable. And I'm just going to check the size against my template, and that's looking pretty good. So I know that because the body's the same size as the template and the head is, that they're going to be in proportion. So if you want to make it bigger, make sure everything else is bigger. If you make it smaller, make sure everything else is smaller. And then onto the legs, which I call rod shapes. And this is another foundational shape. And if you are a beginner and you really want to learn how to needle felt from scratch and with confidence, I will pop in the description the link for my complete beginner's needle felting course. It's a course designed specially for beginners. So we're creating that rod shape. I'm now just again shaping the end so that paw's a little bit wider, add a little bit of extra wool. And the side legs, the back legs, are done in exactly the same way, but just shorter. And I like to leave some wool loose at the end because that just makes them much, much easier to attach. However, with the back legs, we are going to be covering them to build them up and pull out that shape. So it really doesn't matter if you don't leave any loose wool, but try and remember because it does help when you add it. And this shape is perfect for all sorts of animal limbs without the need for wire, because what it does is it keeps the leg super firm. If you're trying to do this by hand, then it takes longer and is more difficult. So I would always advise using a barbecue skewer. I'm all for any techniques that make life easier. So as you can see, that leg is now ready for later on and attaching. I'm going to move on to the ears. Another classic needle felting shape, we're using the petal or the teardrop shape. So I'm just folding 2 very small wisps of wool in half. I'm drawing a rough line around the ears, and then I'm folding in those edges where I created those lines, because that means that you've got a nice soft edge with no wisps, just easier. And if you've got a multi-tool, you can use one. It speeds up the process and it does give it a really nice finish, but you don't need it at all. But if you are doing a lot of needle felting, it's one of the essentials you should have in your toolbox. And I'll pop a link again in the description so you can see where you can purchase them. I've got a really good suppliers list. And when you want to neaten those edges to save your fingers and to make it a lot easier, you can just squash them between a folded piece of cardboard and it makes shaping a lot easier. And then onto the attaching, you can see I've already attached one of each leg, and make sure they're in the middle at the top of the body. And then we just sort of bend those feet up if we need to. And the same for the side. We just attach them with that loose wool, and then we build them up. So we give them sort of a really nice haunch. It's just pads of wool that we use to really, really build up those sides. And it does make a huge difference to how it looks. It just gives it dimension and detail and a better structure. And don't forget to stay tuned to the end so you can grab my free beginner's needle felting toolkit. I'm creating a neck now, just a very short neck, which I usually make too long and then end up having to shorten. And this is optional, but it does make it easier to get that head in position without it looking like it's squat and sort of stuck straight on top of the body. It gives it some dimension that actually helps it look part of the dog, rather than just stuck on to the body as if it's not supposed to be there. And then I'm going around doing some final finishing touches, just covering up any seams with little wisps of wool where it's needed. And as you saw just there, I was just adding a little bit more wool to the head just to build it up for that final finish. Now the nose is really, really simple, and less is more here. You need a tiny wisp of wool. You roll it between your fingers so you've got like this little mini seed. Start with less, you can always add more, and leave the ends loose, because those are what we are going to use to attach to the nose. And this is why it's important for the face to be really firm, because this is where a lot of details are going. So if that shape isn't firm, then you are going to squash the features and end up spoiling that shape you've created. And we're aiming for an upside down triangle, but a really soft triangle. So those loose edges, we felt those in first. We can use our fingers. If it's not in the right position, we can move it around with our fingers and just work that very gently. Use a fine needle if you've got one. It's a lot easier with a fine needle. Absolutely can do this from start to finish with the 38 star good all-rounder. But if you've got a fine needle, it does help. Now, I am using glass beads for the eyes, which I love because it just makes, gives them life. It makes them pop a little bit. But you can quite easily needle felt eyes on, just a little bit of black wool with a tiny dot of white in the middle, just for some highlight. And then I'm just going around the eyes with some dark wool, just to make those eyes pop a little bit, and adding a very small eyebrow just for shape. But again, they are optional. If you're a complete beginner and you're not feeling confident enough to do that, don't do it. Just work on just the basics. And then attaching the ears, we left some loose wool for the ears. And again, I've put them both on at the same time so I can make sure that they are central. We can come back to them later and work on that shape. And then I put a wisp of wool across the ears where they've joined, because that actually covers the joins. And then because this is a Jack Russell puppy, it wouldn't be right not to give it an eye patch. It just adds so much life to it, and it's such a fun detail. So attaching the head, work up through the neck and from the top of the head, and you just poke down with that needle until it starts to hold. It will feel a bit wobbly, but don't worry. Once it's holding, wrap a scarf-like thin piece of wool around its neck and felt that into place until it's nice and neat. And you will feel the head firming up. Really, really easy to add. And remember, you can move it around once it's attached. Get it on and then worry about the final positioning once it's finished. And then I'm just working on these legs, just making sure that they are separated, that the details are nice. And I'm adding a little patch onto that foot there just for some detail. Popping a few more patches on the body. I've got one on the front, and then I couldn't resist popping one just near the bottom because it just seemed to need an extra patch. You can do this for whatever breed you are working on. It really is entirely up to you. It can be any breed or none. It doesn't matter whether it's a Heinz 57, a Jack Russell, an Airedale, whatever you want to do, you make it. Fantastic gifts and lovely memorials as well for your pets, or people that who maybe would love something to remember their pet by. And it's a really easy beginner project. You don't have to go overboard with the details. You can keep it super simple. Now, the final thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use a reverse felting needle. This is optional. And what this does is it reverses the wool. So it pulls it out, pulls the wool out from the head or whatever part of the body you are working on, and it brings that wool out. So you've got this lovely sort of fluffy, wispy wool sticking out of the head, and it gives it a little bit more character. And at the same time, it actually also covers up any joins that you may still be able to see. So it's a really, really good tool. A lot of people don't use a reverse needle, but once you do start using it, you'll wonder why on earth you never got one when you ordered your first set of needles. It just produces some amazing results. And it just adds, again, another dimension, and it's really easy to use. This one is a 40 reverse needle, which I use for most things. You can get a 38, which is a little bit more robust. And again, another great needle. But if you're going to get one reverse needle, then the 40 is the one that I use all the time. I will put the material list in the links, and also I will put my favourite suppliers list in the links there as well for you, so you can find out all the suppliers I've used over, well, since 2014, my favourites and the ones that I recommend, ones that I've used. I mean, there are others, but these are the ones that I know. And as you can see, look at that gorgeous wispiness you've got on the top of that head. It gives it such character. And I just love the effect that it gives. Almost there, and it's time to create the tail. Now, you can use a barbecue skewer, but I'm not going to bother. I'm just going to blend some wool so we've got some different colours. I'm going to do this one by hand. But if you want to use the barbecue skewer, you can do. It's just very thin wisps wrapped around. And I've got some sort of oatmeal white and darker brown. I'm just going to lengthen that out and then roll it up. And then your hands do most of the work here, because your hands and the heat of rubbing your hands mats that tail together, and it becomes much easier to felt, because we want it really thin and kind of wispy at the end, because we want to just be able to bend it, want it to look quite natural. And as you can see, I've just pulled a little bit of loose wool at the end, which is how we are going to attach it to the base of your dog. Keep matting it in your hands, and you will also be able to just get that point on the tail if you just pop one finger in the palm of your hand and roll it. It's a bit long, so I've just pulled a bit off. It's not over felted, so it's quite easy to pull those bits off when you need it. And again, I'm just tightening up that felting, giving it another roll so that I know that it's not going to unravel, and it's going to be easy just to create that little curve by hand once it is attached. Please ask me any needle felting questions in the comments. I love questions and I'll always answer them for you. I'm here to help. And don't go anywhere, because there's another great tutorial coming straight after this. Let me know how you get on with this project in the comments, and if you could just give the channel a like and a subscribe, that would be brilliant. It really helps me to keep putting out the content that you love. And as a thank you for watching, please grab my free needle felting starter toolkit. Link is below. It's an amazing toolkit. It's the best free needle felting toolkit that there is out there. It's got wool guides, needle guides, there's a free pattern and an introduction to needle felting. You will love it. It's absolutely brilliant and it's completely free.